What do I want a bear for? What do I want a bear for? He said when she gave it to him. What do I want a bear for? Bradley went into the kitchen. The fish, now cut up and covered with onions, was frying on the top of the stove. You want me? He asked. How's everything at school? Asked his mother. Great. In fact, today I was elected class president. Your grades are all right? Yes, Mrs. Abel handed back a language test today and I got another A. In fact, it was an A+. May I see it, Mrs. Abel? Ms. Level, hang it on the wall next to all my other A tests. Mrs. Abel just called, said his mother. His heart fluttered. Why didn't you tell me that tomorrow was Parents' Conference Day? Asked his mother. Didn't I tell you? He asked innocently. No, I don't think so. I told you, she said. You said you couldn't go. You must have forget. Miss Abel seems to think it is important for me to be there, said his mother. That's just her job, said Bradley. The more mothers she sees, the more money she makes. Well, I made an appointment with her for 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. Bradley stared at her in disbelief. No, you can't go, he shouted, stamping his foot. It's not fair, Bradley, what? It's not fair. He ran into his bedroom and slammed the door behind him. A moment later, his mother knocked on the door. What is it? She asked. What's not fair? It's not fair, he yelled. You promised. What did I promise, Bradley? What did I promise? He didn't answer. He couldn't until he thought up why it wasn't fair and what she had promised him. He stayed in his room until Claudia told him that he had to come to dinner. He followed her out to the dining room, where his mother and father were already sitting down. Did you wash your hands? Asked their father. Yes, Bradley and Claudia lied. Bradley's father worked in the police department. He had been shot in the leg 4 years ago while chasing a robber. Now he needed a cane to walk, so he worked behind the desk. He didn't like that kind of work and often came home grumpy and short-tempered. The police never caught the man who had shot him. I hate fish, Bradley said as she sat down. So do I, said Claudia. It sticks to my braces, and I taste it for weeks. Brussels sprouts make me throw up, said Bradley. They smell like old garbage. Said Claudia. That's enough, said their father. You'll both eat what's on your plates. Bradley held his nose with one hand while he picked up a Brussels sprout with the other and put it whole into his mouth. What's all this nonsense about your mother breaking her promise? Asked his father. Bradley was ready. She promised she'd take me to the zoo tomorrow, and now she won't. What? Exclaimed his mother. I never said I would take you to the zoo. She did too, said Bradley. Since there is no school tomorrow, she said she'd take me to the zoo. I didn't even know there was no school tomorrow until his teacher called me this afternoon. His mother protested. You promised, said Bradley. Okay, said his father. Janet, what time is your appointment tomorrow with Bradley's teacher? 11 o'clock, okay? You can go to your appointment and still have time to take Bradley to the zoo after lunch. But I never said I would take him to the zoo. You did, accused Bradley. And we have to go in the morning. We have to be at the zoo at 11 o'clock, Claudia snickered. Why do you have to be at the zoo at 11 o'clock? He glared at her, then turned back to his father. Because that's when they feed the lions, Claudia laughed. She promised She'd take me to see them feed the lions at 11 o'clock. Bradley insisted. His mother was flabbergasted. I don't even know when they feed the lions. 11 o'clock, said Bradley. Don't lie to your mother, said his father. Really, said Bradley. They feed the lions at 11 o'clock. I don't tolerate lying, said his father. I'm not lying, said Bradley. Call the zoo if you don't believe me. Don't lie to your mother, and don't lie to me. Call the zoo. Your mother said she never promised to take you to the zoo. She's lying. Right after she said it, he knew it was a mistake. His father turned purple with rage. Don't ever call your mother a liar. Now go to your room. Just call the zoo. Bradley pleaded. Maybe I didn't tell him I'd take him to the... Maybe I did tell him I'd take him to the zoo, said his mother. See, Bradley, said Bradley. Keep it up, Bradley, said his father. Just keep it up. You want to be a criminal when you grow up? You want to spend your life in jail? I see people just like you every day at the police station. Just keep it up. Bradley stared angrily at his father. No, all criminals go to jail. Not all criminals go to jail, he asserted. What about the man who shoot you? I said. Go to your room. Bradley stood up from the table. I didn't want to eat this junk anyway. He stomped down the hall into his room and slammed the door. Then he opened it and shouted, Call the zoo. One last time, then slammed it again. He lay on his bed and cried. Don't cry, Bradley, said Ronnie. Everything will be all right. You'll think of something, Bradley, said Bartholomew. You always do. You're the smartest kid in the world. Bradley stood at the front door and hollered, Miss Abel is a liar. Don't believe anything she tells you. Don't believe anything she tells you. Bradley's mother, going to the car, gritted her teeth and drove to school. She was just as afraid as Bradley, if not more so, of what Miss Abel would tell her. She wanted to believe Bradley when he told her he was getting all A's or was elected class president. She tried to fool herself that it could be true, even though she knew it couldn't. She knew her son, and she knew Miss Abel wouldn't take the trouble to call her on the phone if everything were really as wonderful as Bradley said it was. Still, she hoped. She opened the door to Bradley's classroom. No one was there. Hello, she called out timidly. She looked around. There was a bulletin board covered with A papers. She looked from one paper to another and hoped with all her heart that she would see one with Bradley's name on it. She didn't. In the back corner of the room, she saw a chart that listed the name of every student in the class. Next to each name was a row of gold stars. Next to Bradley Chuckers, there were no stars. Mrs. Chuckers, startled. She turned around to see Miss Abel. Oh, you scared me, she said, then smiled. Miss Abel didn't smile. Miss Chalkers sat at a chair next to the teacher's desk and bravely listened as Miss Abel told her about Bradley. There was nothing Miss Abel said that she didn't already know. Still, it hurt to hear it. Deep down, he really is a good boy, she tried to tell She tried to tell Bradley's teacher. I'm sure he has a lot of good qualities, said Miss Abel. However, I have 28 other children in my class, and I can't spend all my time trying to help Bradley. He has to decide whether he wants to be a part of the class or not. And if he doesn't want to be a part of the class, then he shouldn't be here. He just makes it that much harder for everyone else. What can I do? Asked Bradley's mother. The school has just hired a counselor, said Miss Abel. I'd like your permission for Bradley to begin seeing her once a week. Anything that'll help my son, said Mrs. Chalkers. I don't know if she can help him or not, said Miss Abel. Bradley has a very serious behavior problem. If he doesn't show improvement soon, more drastic measures will have to be taken. Deep down, he really is a good boy, said Bradley's mother. Well, let's go meet the counselor, said Miss Abel. She led Bradley's mother down the halls to the counselor's office. The door was open, but no one was there. Bradley's mother stepped into the room. Boxes were everywhere. Some were turned over, with their contents half spilled onto the floor. A yellow letter lay on its side. In the center of the room was a round table surrounded by chairs, but the table and chairs were covered with papers and boxes and games and books. There was hardly room for Bradley's mother and teacher to stand. There was hardly room for Bradley's mother and teacher to stand. She's just moving in, Miss Abel explained. I'm sure she'll have it cleaned up by tomorrow. Miss Chalkers shrugged. She picked up a dolphin puppet from an open box on the table and put her hand inside it. Suddenly there was a loud grunt, and a young woman entered the room. She dropped the box she was carrying, and more than 100 crayons spilled out across the floor. Oh, hello, she said. She was a lot younger than either Mr. Abel or Mrs. Chalkers. She wore blue jeans and a red t-shirt with rock and roll written across it in light blue letters. She had light brown hair, almost blonde, and clear blue eyes. I'm Clara Davies, she said, and held out her hand. Bradley's mother stared at her a moment, then reached out to shake her hand, but suddenly realized she was still wearing the dolphin puppet. She quickly removed it and put it back in the box on the table. The counselor smiled. She needs to sign the form so that you can start seeing her son. Miss Davies looked hopelessly around her office. They're around here somewhere, she muttered, then began tearing into the boxes. Perhaps I'd better come back, said Bradley's mother. Found them, said the counselor, holding up the forms. She cleared the space on the round table by pushing away a box and gave Mrs. Turkles a form to sign. Bradley's mother looked around the messy office, then at the young woman with the rock and roll t-shirt. She shrugged her shoulders and signed her name. Miss Davies took the form from her. Oh, you're Bradley Chalker's mother. Miss Chalker nodded. You'd not believe all the horror stories I've heard about Bradley Chalker, said the new counselor. I've been here less than 3 hours, but it seems like every teacher in the school has dropped by to warn me about him. Deep down, he really is Bradley's mother started to say. I can't wait to meet him, the counselor interrupted. He sounds charming, just delightful.